I recently completed Season 27, which was themed around pirates. But how does it compare against the other 30 seasons we've had in Jailbreak? And yes, I mean 30, because there are 4 other seasons outside of this new season system that we have to take into account. Today I am ranking them all from worst to best. The 3 things I'm using to evaluate them are: number 1, did I have fun playing the season? This is the most important factor, but it can certainly be influenced by the other 2. Number 2, how good was the grand prize? And was it worth the amount of time I spent grinding for it? And 3, how good were the cosmetic prizes? Each of these categories is subjective, and you may feel differently than me, which is totally fine. Just make sure to be respectful about it and comment your opinion down below. I will also rank seasons higher if they set a good precedent and make the following seasons easier or more enjoyable. Anyway, enough yap. Let's get started. In last place, we have OG Season 4. This was a season that took over 5 months to arrive, and it was a supreme disappointment. This season did not reward any vehicles at all, which was completely inexcusable since by this point, the vehicle spawning system was in full effect. It only rewarded 6 spoilers. Now, I did like about half of the spoilers, but some of them were quite lazy. 2 of the spoilers were the exact same thing, just recolored, and cosmetics on their own are not enough to carry a season. There was also no incentive to actually grind this season because at the time you were able to purchase season cosmetics even after the season had ended. I did not even play OG Season 4 and I was able to buy all the spoilers months after it ended. This season was so bad it made the devs stop seasons for a full year. It was a true disgrace and I'm glad that nothing has been this bad since. Then we have Season 13, Become a Supervillain. I was not a big fan of this season theme when it was announced, but I could have been won over with the execution. However, that didn't win me over either. Most of the prizes were really mediocre in my opinion. They were often just worse version of prizes we already got. For instance, the flamethrower spoilers just felt like bootleg versions of the thruster spoilers. I was also quite annoyed that they included a body color as one of the rewards from the season. This just felt lazy to me and it felt like it took a spot away from a potential community creator, and the devs ended up adding darkest body colors to the game in the next update anyway, so it felt really odd that one of the darkest body colors will forever be locked behind the season, whereas the others can just be bought from the garage. The only cosmetic that I really liked was the laser spoiler. However, everything else was mediocre or bad. As for the grand prize itself, I thought the bandit was alright, but it's one of the most forgettable season vehicles in my opinion. It looks pretty competent and it has pretty good stats, but it does not really wow me in any way. And finally, I wasn't super enthralled when I was playing this season. I don't remember ever feeling that annoyed, but I just felt quite ambivalent. And this was back when seasons were exclusively contract based, which was quite annoying. Then we have Season 20, Apocalypse. This to me is one of the most disappointing seasons because I was really excited for an apocalypse theme. I think it lends itself really well to a jailbreak season and there's so many cool ideas you could do for it. However, in execution, I was quite let down. I was rather mixed on the cosmetics. I thought things like the texture and the drift were done pretty well, but there were a few items like the buzzsaw spoiler that I thought were quite poorly done. They randomly flicker off at certain points, which is really weird and quite annoying to me. And the striker grand prize was a huge letdown and made the grind for the season more like a chore. I was not super excited for the striker, but I was not opposed to its addition in the season. I certainly think it looks pretty cool, but the stats are just so bad. I'm not asking for torpedo level stats here. I just want something competent, and this vehicle just fails. I will say though that I do appreciate how the devs made the map a little bit themed to represent the season. During the second month of the season, they made the skies a little bit darker to make a more gloomy feel and make it feel more like an apocalyptic wasteland. I would have liked if they went ahead and made the city old and dilapidated to kind of look like it was destroyed by an apocalypse, but I do appreciate that they did something, and I want more seasons to have the map themed around them. Still though, this season overall was thoroughly underwhelming and a disappointment to a season theme that I had been excited for years. Then there's OG Season 2. This was a season that I liked well enough when I was playing it, but I unfortunately can't rank it that high just because it doesn't have much to offer. It only rewarded textures and most of them looked pretty good, but some of them like the hot dog texture looked quite bad in my opinion. It was just a decal lined over the middle of a car instead of an interesting design. This season also did not reward reward any new vehicles. Instead, it rewarded the torpedo and Batmobile again, but I was fine with that since they didn't have the vehicle spawning system implemented, so they didn't have a way to actually retire the torpedo and Batmobile. However, since it did not reward any new season vehicles, I really can't rank this season much higher, because even though some of the seasons might not have been as fun as this one, I still appreciated them for having decent season vehicles to begin with, whereas this just has none and it cannot really compete. Then we have a pretty recent jailbreak season, Pixel Arcade. This was a theme that I wasn't super excited for, and I can't say that I was won over too much in the season execution, and I did not enjoy grinding it that much, but I am rating it higher than some of these other seasons because it is under the contract and daily XP system, not the old system where it was just daily contracts. So it was a little bit more enjoyable. I thought most of the prizes were quite mediocre, and that includes the Revox. It's not a terrible vehicle, which makes this season better than season 20. I like the super unique design and it has some fun attributes like the handling, but it's not super impressive to me. So this season didn't make much of a mark. Up next is season 5, Let the Memes Begin. I think the cosmetics are outright bad, at least most of them. I think the texture is one of the worst ones in the game purely because it translates to most vehicles really poorly. I did not hesitate to trade this texture away when trading was first added. Even though it's pretty highly valued, I just don't see why, and I didn't care for it. The same goes for the RTX rims. These were super disappointing because you could not customize them at all and they didn't actually glow. Therefore, I thought the season pass was not worth buying at all. It also fell under the exclusively contract-based season system, so it's getting lower points for that. But the season is carried by the grand prize being really good. We got the banana car, which I wasn't a big fan of at first, but it's really grown on me.
Say that again?
It's a fun and wacky design, but it's also very effective for gameplay. It seats 3 people, so it's decent for teams. It's quite enjoyable to drive due to its slippery nature, and it has pretty formidable stats and has gotten some recent buffs. So while I didn't care much for the season itself, the grand prize is quite appealing.
Say that again?
And it has made this season stick in my mind. Then there's season 9, A New Journey. This was one of the most hype eras of Jailbreak in my opinion. We had just gotten the 2022 live event, which I thought was incredible. Unfortunately, this season itself was not really that hype. In fact, I think it is the epitome of the word mid. It's not bad at all, but it's not really good either. I think the cosmetic rewards are pretty solid and can be used outside of the season theme, but they aren't super memorable. The Jackrabbit is one of the most forgettable vehicles in the game. It's not a bad vehicle and I think the stats are perfectly appropriate, but it does not really incentivize me to use it at all. Also, this season was exclusively contract based, but the devs introduced a new system where the contracts would refresh every 24 hours. I wasn't a super big fan of that because it meant that if you logged in just a little bit later than you logged in yesterday, then your contract time would be pushed more and more, so it made grinding a bit inconvenient. This season also did something pretty unique where instead of a car being rewarded at level 10, it was a texture. The Jackrabbit was rewarded at level 8, and for level 10, you would unlock the Old Town Road texture. It was an interesting idea, but not one I care for that much. The main reason I play seasons is for the vehicles. Overall, not a bad season, but not a good one either. I did enjoy playing it though, because mid-2022 after the live event was one of the most fun periods of Jailbreak that I have ever had. Moving on from that, we have Season 4, Epic Adventures. This was the first season to implement community creations, and that's a precedent that I am quite happy to have in Jailbreak. I'm super pleased at just how thoroughly Jailbreak has managed to integrate community creations into its gameplay, and this season was such a big part of that, so I will give it a lot of extra points for that. I did enjoy it at the time, and there are some quality rewards for sure. I think the texture is really good, I like the sarcophagus bed, and the bookshelf furniture is really fun. However, many of the prizes have not held up. For instance, the compass rims cannot be customized at all, which was a huge disappointment when this season was first implemented, and still disappoints me years later. As for the Rattler, I think it looks really cool. I like the design of it a lot. I love the effects, and overall I think it's a decent vehicle, but it's not that interesting and not that special to me, and I'm often not compelled to use it. So I do appreciate this season's precedent, but I don't think it's held up. Then we have Season 16, Summer Beach Party. I enjoyed the vibe of this season, and the prizes were okay overall. There were some stinkers like the Lifebuoy tires and the beach ball rims, but there were some really creative and well executed prizes like the volleyball rims. The Poseidon was a vehicle that I had wanted to get in the game in Season 10, so I was happy that they finally added it in Season 16, though it's not a vehicle that I've used at all really. However, I didn't enjoy this season too much. I was getting quite tired of the exclusively contract-based seasons, and since I was about to begin college, I was considering quitting Jailbreak altogether. Seasons are the main main reason I still consistently play the game, and I was getting quite tired of them at this point. Then we have Season 1, New Beginnings. After a year of no new seasons thanks to the disastrous OG Season 4, the devs finally decided to revamp seasons and bring them back to the game. And even though seasons were super flawed for a big portion of their time in Jailbreak, I was still happy that they were brought back to begin with, so I am grateful to this season for restarting them. It has some fantastic cosmetic rewards like the snowstorm texture, and even though the beam hybrid wasn't a super well liked grand prize at the time, I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed the design and the stats weren't that great, but they weren't terrible. However, this season had a lot of flaws and it was not super fun to play. The contracts in this season were pretty hard for both teams. On the criminal team, you often had to get a pretty high bounty, often over 10k, without dying. It's not difficult for many of you, but keep in mind that for mid-tier or lower tier players that are rather new to the game, this is a bit much to ask of them, especially since back in the day you lost your bounty after you died. On the cop team, you'd often have to arrest people with high bounties, which was also incredibly difficult because criminals die so much and it is very rare to find people with bounties over 5k. And that was even worse back then because it was harder to up your bounty and you would lose it when you died. The contracts were also really boring. There were only about 6 of them and they got super repetitive super fast. When I first heard the devs were bringing back missions as contracts and making them part of the season, I was excited because I thought they would be supplements to the season. I didn't expect that they'd be what the season is entirely based on, and that was quite annoying. And if you didn't own the season pass, then you had to pretty much play every single day of the season if you wanted the beam hybrid. The XP requirements were a bit too much. So there were many flaws, but I still did have a very good time with it because I was so happy that they decided to bring back seasons. I don't think this is a great season, but it has a lot of good things. Then we have Season 3, Looking Back. To be honest, I thought the cosmetics were pretty bad for this season. A lot of them were done really poorly, like the confetti texture. The devs also chose to bring back the OG Mini Cooper as a season prize, which was not something I was opposed to, but they didn't execute it well since if you already had the OG Mini Cooper, you got nothing when you reached that level. So for people who did not have the season pass like me, there were 3 levels straight where you just didn't get anything when progressing, which was very unmotivating. Beyond that, the devs also did a one-time thing where they offered all of the rewards of the season for 500 Robux. I don't think it was the worst idea ever, honestly. It didn't feel like the season grinding was pointless since I still saved myself 500 Robux and I don't want to pay Robux for season prizes, but it was still a pretty controversial idea that a lot of people really disliked, so the devs have never done it again. This season was shaping up to be one of the worst of all time, but the grand prize was so good that it single-handedly saved this season. The Volt 4x4 has become one of my favorite vehicles in Jailbreak. It's an amazing looking vehicle that is really fun to drive, and now it has quite good stats. The Volt 4x4 grand prize was so good that it made grinding this season a bit enjoyable since I actually had a fun grand prize to get. And overall, it's the primary reason why I'm happy this season exists and why I'm ranking it this high. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty poorly done. Then we have Season 7. This was the first winter season in Jailbreak, and I found it to be really disappointing because we didn't get a winter-themed grand prize at all. The Icebreaker is a great vehicle, but I did not think it was a good ice-themed vehicle. I had wished that we had gotten a more traditional ice vehicle, but we did end up getting that a few seasons later, so I wasn't too disappointed. The season itself was also made a bit more difficult with the XP requirements, which I didn't mind that much, but definitely did not need to be there. And a few of the prizes are really good, but some of them just don't hold up. Ultimately, it's a big mixed bag of the season, but I did enjoy the grand prize and I'm happy I've done this season. Following that up, we have Season 22, Visiting America. I'll get the biggest negative out of the way first. This season was just too long. It went near 3 months. I'm glad that this did not become a staple of seasons from now on. I prefer them to be 2 months long. It gives people enough time to do them, and it gives enough of a break until the next one. As for the season itself, I thought it was pretty good. I had wanted an American season, and I was largely happy with what we got. Even though a lot of the prizes weren't the best, I still enjoyed them for the most part, and I was really happy with the Maverick. It's not the best vehicle, but I love me some pickup trucks, and I was happy to get a fusion of a pickup truck and a muscle car as a season prize. This season is also under the mix of contract and daily XP, so I do enjoy that. Then there's Season 14, For the Champions. Overall, the cosmetics were okay, but nothing too special and pretty forgettable, but the grand prize was great. The Proto 08 was an awesome vehicle. It was basically a better looking roadster, and it quickly became a fan favorite season vehicle. However, I was never too big on it because it would initially pothole like crazy, and it was pretty much impossible to drive this vehicle. And while that did get fixed, by then I had moved on to other things, and this vehicle just wasn't good enough to stand out. Still a good vehicle, but not one that compels me to use it, and I didn't have too much fun playing this season. Overall, it's pretty mid, but the grand prize is quite good. Then there's season 12, Bring in the Military. This was a highly requested season, and overall, I thought it was done pretty well, but not the best. Some prizes like the texture were a bit disappointing since I had wanted a proper camo texture, but luckily down the line we got one in the shop anyway. Even though the Goliath is not really that good for gameplay, it's still a very fun and unique vehicle. I love how huge and intimidating it is, and I think it's such a fun car. However, this season did not blow me away, and I don't really use the grand prize that much, so that's why I'm not ranking it that high. Then we have OG Season 3. This season came out during the peak of Jailbreak in my opinion. We were getting incredible updates back to back, so it was the most fun I've ever had playing the game, and I had a blast playing this season as well. The prizes weren't the best, but they were still pretty good. I quite liked the rims. They worked really well with almost any customization. I'm not big on tire stickers, but there were a variety of pretty good tire stickers offered from this season. And this season rewarded two vehicles, the R8 and the Raptor. I quite enjoyed the Raptor. I think it looks pretty solid, especially for the time that it was created. And I used to drive a Ford pickup truck to school, so I have a lot of fond memories of it. It's still a fun team vehicle I like to use every now and then. I'm not too big on the R8, and I never have been, but now it's a pretty good vehicle with decent stats. And this season was under the OG season system where there was no daily limit on XP, so it was more fun grinding this one than other seasons. However, the biggest issue with this season was that it was simply way too long. It was 5 months long, which is ridiculous. And while the prizes are pretty good overall, they just don't hold up that well. However, I did have a lot of fun doing it, so that's why I gotta rank it this high. Then we got Season 21, Rewind. Like Season 3, this season focused on the past of Jailbreak, but I thought this season did a much better job overall. The prizes were much more consistent, and because this season was not exclusively contract-based, it was much more enjoyable than Season 3. I don't like the texture, but it is fitting for the season since it is based off of the old decals that you could put on vehicles. I thought the prizes were quite creative with how they incorporated features of Jailbreak into vehicle customizations, and I think the OG monster truck was the perfect grand prize for this season. I do really appreciate that this season reduced the season pass down from 400 Robux to 320 Robux. Although I think the season pass was worth it at 400 Robux since you get a lot of items even beyond the cosmetics, any reduction in price is always welcome in my book. So I do appreciate that this season did that, and it kept the season pass price lower ever since then. I also do really like that this season had a themed map. Because this season happened with the 2024 live event which brought back OG Jailbreak, the map also had some OG elements like OG buildings glitching in, so it was nice that the map was themed to represent the season as well. And like I said, I want more seasons to do this. I did not love this season though. The OG monster truck, while it is cool to have, is not a vehicle I like to use all that much since the only thing it has going for it is nostalgia, while the current monster truck is better in every way. Otherwise though, I do recognize that this season was pretty consistent and overall pretty good. Then up next we have the most recent Jailbreak season, Season 27, A Pirate's Treasure. Up until I got level 6, I was not enjoying this season. I felt most of the cosmetic prizes were pretty poorly done, and there were several things I would have preferred to be included instead. However, near the end, I started enjoying it more as I got better prizes, like the cannon spoiler, the buccaneer texture, and it concluded really well with the Blackbeard, which I think is an excellent grand prize. The stats are fantastic.
Say that again?
And combining those with the ability to drive on water makes this a very good vehicle for the game. I like pirates. I love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, so I was happy to get this season, and I enjoyed it near the end, though I was not happy with the first half. Up next, we have Season 15. And from now on, most of the seasons are going to be very consistent in their prize quality. I thought almost all of the prizes from the season really hit, and it was a really nice theme to get. This was the first of the culture-themed seasons, and I really enjoy those. I want more of them. There were some really creative prizes in here, like the Sakura rims, which I think are some of the best and most interesting rims in the game. The Shogun is a really cute and really well-executed grand prize. It has pretty good stats, it has a unique texture, and it was the first right-hand drive vehicle to get. The main negative of this season is the fact that it was during the time of contract-only seasons, but overall, I still quite enjoyed it. I appreciate that it started a wave of culture seasons, and the prizes were super well done overall. Then we have Season 18, Wild West. This was another culture-themed season, and I quite enjoyed this one, particularly because it was the second under the new contract mixed with daily XP season system. I thought pretty much all of the rewards were big hits. I was very impressed impressed with some of them, like the tumbleweed rims. While I haven't really used the Longhorn much, I still appreciate it. I think it's a beautiful looking car, it has pretty good stats, and it seats 4 people. So not a super memorable season necessarily, but overall a very consistent one in terms of quality and a really enjoyable one. I have similar thoughts with season 11. This was themed around toys and collectibles, and I was not looking forward to this theme at all. But it turned out to be a very pleasant surprise because most of the items were really well made. For instance, the texture that was rewarded in this season is one of the best in the game. The worst cosmetic prize of this season is still a 6 out of 10, which is really good. This season also rewarded 2 season vehicles, which was something that only season 3 and the OG seasons had done, and it was something that I really appreciated, and I want more seasons to do. I thought the Bloxy was a pretty good season prize. I like Lego, and it was nice to have a Lego car in the game, but the tiny toy really stole the show. It was rewarded at level 8, but it had crazy stats. So this season really took me by surprise, and I had a lot of fun with it. Kicking off the top 10, we have season 10, Rich and Famous. I think every single prize in this season was fantastic.
Say that again?
They fit the theme well, were well made, and were nice additions to your car or apartment. For instance, the 2 furniture items are furniture items that I use in almost all of my apartments. We got 2 textures in the season and both of them look great, and all the rims and spoilers are beautiful as well. We also got a great grand prize in the form of the Macaron. It is one of the worst hypercars, but that does not mean it's a bad vehicle at all. I thought it was a great prize for the season. It looks absolutely beautiful, and the stats are very competent, though not my favorite. Even though it was under the exclusively contract-based system, this season was still very enjoyable to do because the prizes were so good. In 9th place, we have season 26, Jungle Adventure. This season ended up being a pleasant surprise since the theme initially did not interest me and I didn't think it would work well for Jailbreak, but there were some quite fun and creative items made for the game that fit well on vehicles. The Cobra also turned out to be a surprisingly great season prize. Not only did it have a great top speed and acceleration, but it was also armed with some guns that make it very useful for the cop team. So I ended up enjoying this season, especially because the prizes turned out great. Then in 8th place, we have season 23, To the 80s. I have wanted a classic/retro themed season for quite a while now, so I was really happy to get this one. Even though I'd still want to see a true vintage season with 1950s cars and stuff. This season had a really enjoyable vibe to it, especially with a lot of the prizes. There were some really good ones like the cassette rims, the texture, and the guitar spoiler. The Wedge is one of my favorite season grand prizes. It looks absolutely beautiful. It's an original design taking influences from many different vehicles, and I think it was created excellently. It's also very fast, which was refreshing because this was the first season since season 17 to reward a fast vehicle. One thing I don't like about this season is that it was a bit too long as well. It ran for 80 days, and if seasons don't offer more rewards, then I don't like it when they run closer to 3 months. Then we have season 8, Looking to the Future. Unfortunately, a lot of the cosmetics have not aged the best. I wasn't very impressed with some of them, like the overdrive spoiler, since it doesn't look that good on some vehicles, but I still really enjoyed the vibe of the season, and I thought a lot of the prizes were still quite good, like the energized rims, the Tryon rims, and the teleporting furniture. But what made this season so good was the grand prize, the Celsior. There was so much hype for it. It was one of the most upvoted submissions, and I was really excited to get it in the game, and it totally delivered. I think it looks awesome. I love the stairs that kind of pop up when you get out of the vehicle. Even though the hover height isn't that high, it's still pretty useful to climb over terrain. It's hard for your enemies to take it down, and it seats 4 people, so it's a great team vehicle. The Celsior is an elite season prize, so it elevates this season really high. In 6th place, we have season 6, Race to the Top. This was a consistently great season, and I was super pleased with the rewards. There were several great cosmetic prizes rewarded that look great on any vehicle. I quite like the Golf texture in particular. This season also rewarded the Bugatti Bolide, which was a vehicle that many players had wanted, and to me this fully lived up to the hype, and it's now one of my favorite vehicles in the game. It's a great vehicle for both teams. This season also introduced the percentage system, where the top percentage of people completing the season would get a bonus prize. I think that was a great idea, but unfortunately I still don't feel that has been executed properly. The vast majority of Jailbreak players do not participate in the seasons, so these bonus percentage prizes are pretty much always given out to everybody who plays consistently. I think it needs to be reworked to where it only factors in people who have reached level 2 or above. I want there to be actual competition over these bonus percentage prizes. Additionally, this season system was way too easy. The devs tried to make it like the OG season system where you just had to rob locations or arrest people to complete your contracts, but here it was made way too simple, since you pretty much just had to arrest only 3 people in order to complete the cop requirement, and you had to rob only 3 places on the criminal side. I don't want seasons to be hard, but I don't want them to be complete nothing burgers like this. So this season system was not too much fun to do, and that's the big thing holding the season back, although I love the prizes. To kick off the top 5, we have Season 19. This may seem way too high for many of you. I know this season isn't the most well liked, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and I think it has held up. This was still one of the first seasons to be under the modern season system, which mixed daily XP with the contracts, so it was really fun to experience that with a winter season for the first time. The cosmetics were consistently great. This has one of my favorite drifts. It has one of the best furnitures of all time. I don't really think anything was amiss in terms of cosmetics. While the grand prize is not the most beloved, I still really appreciate it. It seats 6 people, it has an okay launch, and it has a tow cable, which makes it unique in a way. I was also really happy to get it since this was a proper winter themed vehicle. Unlike Season 7, which was the first winter themed season where the vehicle was not related to the winter theme. So I had a great time playing this season and I thought all of the prizes were really good. In fourth, we have Season 24. This was the most recent winter themed season and I thought this was a slam dunk. I absolutely loved it. The prizes were consistently great. This season rewarded one of the best textures in the game, and it rewarded one of my favorite drifts in the game with the icicle drift. That looks like icicles are actually coming up behind your car when you're driving. We also got the Storm Rider in this season, which I absolutely love. It looks amazing and it has fantastic stats with the incredible launch. Kicking off the top 3, we have Season 2, Out of This World. This season is being rated so high because it did so much work in making the exclusively contract-based seasons way more tolerable. Here they made the XP requirements much more lax, which was greatly appreciated. They also added several more contracts, so it was not nearly as boring since there was more of a variety of what you could do. Beyond that, the season itself was fantastic.
Say that again?
And has one of the best sets of prizes out of all the seasons. We got some all-time great prizes like the rocket spoiler and the Vanta Black color. And the reason the Vanta Black works well here, whereas the dark purple did not work in Season 13, was because the Vanta Black was very unique. It was properly dark, it actually fit the theme well, and it was not something that could be put into the garage with a bunch of variants, unlike the darkest purple. The grand prize itself was not that well liked when it was first added. I myself was not a big fan of it and found it disappointing, but it has really held up, and I think it's actually one of the best vehicles in the game. Like the Celsior, it's a spawnable flying vehicle, which makes it really useful, and while it is slower than the Celsior, it is much smaller and hard to shoot out. This is a fantastic vehicle for escaping cops. It's really hard for cops to catch up to it or eject you from it. This was also the first ever season to be themed around something, which I think was a great idea for seasons and made this one really fun. I really like the space theming and I hope they do something similar to this in the future. The season prizes here were so good that I ended up buying the season pass even after I had already finished the season because I wanted them so bad. In the penultimate spot, we have Season 17. Exploring Europe. This season was absolutely phenomenal, and the key reason for that is the change it made to the season system. Before this season, for over 2 years, seasons were entirely comprised of contracts. Although I had tolerated them because they kept me playing the game, they were still not fun to do and they felt like a chore. I was getting quite tired of them at that point and I was pretty close to quitting the game, especially since college was about to start up and take more of my time. Many players were already well past that point and were furious with the season system. However, this season completely changed that and made the season system almost perfect. This season allowed you to earn XP from robbing stores or from arresting people, which was just like the old days and what everybody had wanted. They had to put a daily limit on how much XP you could earn, and I would not want this in an ideal world because I like the idea of you just grinding the season whenever you want. I would prefer that you could do it on your own time instead of being forced to play every day. But obviously, because we live in the real world and the game has to deal with hackers, it has to be set up like this. So this is the best possible thing we can get right now. This season also kept contracts around but made them much better since they were weekly. They were made a little bit more difficult, but you could work on them throughout the week, which I think was a great change. That's what I had always felt contracts should have been. Nice supplements to the season, but not the main thing that keeps you playing. If there's a contract that annoys you, you can either re-roll it or just skip it, since you actually don't have to use contracts at all for the new season system. This season also improved seasons overall by adding more prizes. In In addition to the 9 cosmetics and the 1 vehicle, you will also get cash, rocket fuel, and safes from the season. I thought this was a great change since it made seasons more incentivizing to grind. Even if you don't like the cosmetics, you should still do the season because they give you slight bonuses in cash and rocket fuel. Plus, this new system basically made it so we don't have to worry about rocket fuel or cash taking up a spot that could be filled by a cosmetic. The changes brought about by this new system were pretty much everything I was hoping for. And I think this was one of the best changes implemented into the game, and I think this is one of the best updates of all time. The season itself is quite strong as well, and even if this was under the old contract system, I would have still ranked it very high. This was another season that was themed around a certain part of the world, following up from season 15, which was themed around Japan, and I really love that theming idea, and I hope they do it more in the future. I thought the prizes for Europe were really creatively done. This season also rewarded probably the best texture in the entire game with the Berlin Wall texture, which actually changes color depending on what vehicle you put it on. I want more textures to be like this. The P1 Grand Prize is also fantastic.
Say that again?
It's not one of my favorite hypercars, but it's still quite good. It has one of the best designs in the game, and the stats are fantastic.
Say that again?
Ultimately, this was an incredible season, and I'm definitely tempted to put it into first place, but I just did not have as much fun with this one as I did with the first place position. Plus, I do have a few nitpicks with it. First off, I think this should have been titled Season 1. This was basically an entirely new system, and I think the name change should have reflected that. Plus, it would make it so that the seasons wouldn't be at such an absurdly high number. The fact Jailbreak is about to be at season 28 is a little crazy. Additionally, while I do think the season pass is now worth the Robux since you're getting a lot of good prizes in addition to the cosmetics, the season pass for this season specifically was too expensive. It was 500 Robux. I was glad that they lowered it after this season. Overall though, this was still an incredible season that brought about phenomenal changes to the season system and made me keep playing the game for several more years. But like I said, it's not my favorite. My favorite is still the very first season in Jailbreak's history, OG Season 1. At the beginning, I mentioned that I'll rate seasons that set a good precedent way higher on the list, and this season set the best precedent of all by creating seasons to begin with. I thought creating seasons for Jailbreak was a great idea and a great way to keep people like me playing even after we had bought all the vehicles. I love Jailbreak and I'm always looking for something to do, so having me consistently come back to the game to play was definitely a good idea. This season was the most fun I've ever had playing the game because I did not have a daily XP limit, so I could just play at my own time. It was really fun grinding in multi-hour sessions to finish this season, and it was so satisfying when I unlocked the prizes. I don't think the cosmetic rewards of this season are very good though. I was never really a big fan of them and didn't elect to use them that much. They were just kind of generic and they have not held up well. However, the season vehicles rewarded were great. You guys know how much I love the Batmobile. I love to use it even to this day. I actually elected to unlock the Batmobile first instead of the Torpedo since I thought it was a way cooler vehicle and more enjoyable to drive, but the Torpedo is still fantastic.
Say that again?
Ultimately, I'm most happy that this season exists above all the others. I most enjoyed playing this one, so that's why I think it is the best of all 31 seasons in Jailbreak. But that will wrap up my latest season ranking. What do you think? Which seasons are your favorites or least favorites? Which season was your very first one? What seasons would you like to see in the future? Let me know all your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed, I'd love if you liked and subscribed. Join my Discord server and Roblox group linked in the description. Make sure to use code YouTube NoobFreak at any Jailbreak ATM to unlock my tires in the game. Anyways, have a great rest of your day or night.